Hello, I am Rand Scholet, President of the Alexander Hamilton Awareness Society, or for short, the AHA Society. I was born in central New York, April 22nd, 1957, small town, and I went to college in Potsdam State University up north for computer science, and with a plan to work at IBM, which worked out. So I worked in Poughkeepsie, New York, in central New York. And first I was an operating systems developer. When I was young, I excelled in math. That seemed to be my interest. I liked the space program. So I stayed in mathematics and was interested in computer science. I found out that IBM did all the computer work for NASA. So that was the direction I wanted to go. And when I was young, I played all kinds of sports, basketball, baseball, and soccer. But my real natural love at the time also was music. I was a music student of the year, both in my junior year, which was unusual, and my senior year. And I went to Fredonia College summer music camp. So there was a lot of joy there, but I couldn't see a way to make a living on the music side, so I decided I can do that in my spare time and enjoy that, but I have to get a job that can pay the bills. Crane School of Music is part of Potsdam State University, and so I got a lot of my love of music there. One of the interesting things is I was in math class in my senior year. I was late to picking a college. The guidance counselors were picking on me. So in my senior year, it was getting late, and I remember Miss Cow saying, "Scholet, most people already have a place where they're going to college. You need to get going on this." And I said, yes, I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want to go. And one of the places I didn't want to go was Potsdam, because they had Crane School of Music, which had some of the best musicians, and I was average or above average. I was selected for All-State for New York, so I had some talent, but I couldn't compete with people who auditioned from around the Northeast for this college, so I wasn't interested in going. But I heard over the loudspeaker, "Rand Scholet, please come to the office." So I go to the office, and Mrs. Rodzinka, who was my math teacher, said, "There's some representative from Potsdam. He'd like to talk to you." And I said, "Well, I can get out of math class, so I'll go talk to him." So it's, nothing's going to come of it. I went and talked and found out that not only were there the super musicians, but they had like 4 bands, red, green, blue, and yellow, and many non-Crane people could perform, and so that changed my thinking. So in college, I was set on computer science and math, so I got my math mostly out of the way. But interestingly, I was able to get into a lot of music classes in Crane School of Music. So I earned 43 credits in computer science, but 41 in music. I also set the record for the most credits earned in 4 years at the university, 177. So I really, really enjoyed it. So I did most of my math the first 2 years, and then I focused on computer science the last 2 years. I really enjoyed Potsdam, from music, performances. Because I was a low-income person, there was a BEOG, Basic Education Opportunity Grants, and so I got full tuition at the time. And but to do that, I had to work on a work-study program, and my job was the tape technician. So that's how I earned my work-study program to pay for my books, pay for my housing, and all. So that was really a valuable experience for me and a joy for me. I also played soccer for 3 years on the varsity team. But when I was in college, surprisingly, I heard that the Philadelphia Orchestra has a summer location where the whole orchestra leaves Pennsylvania and goes to Saratoga, New York for the month of August. And they asked our professor, Crane School of Music, to have a chorus. They wanted to have the big choral works, the big master works. And so he said he would do that, Brock McElherron. This is in 1976. And he let it known to the chorus, the Crane chorus, if anyone was interested, blah, blah, blah. I said, wow, that would be pretty interesting. So I went and I auditioned, and I was accepted to sing with the Philadelphia Orchestra. So I actually sang with them in 1976 and 1977. I sang with Eugene Ormandy, Arthur Fiedler, Marian Anderson, Aaron Copland, Leonard Bernstein. And it was just incredible. And I found out that 88% of those that were in the chorus were music teachers, and almost everyone else were music performers. I was a computer science major in school. Again, it was an interesting moment in my life. The great thing about Potsdam is that it offered the first 4-year degree in computer science in the nation. IBM came up from Binghamton, Kingston, and Poughkeepsie, and they formed a guidance career because they needed trained people to fulfill what IBM needed. So IBM was on the steering committee. We had IBM Computer, and in those days it was behind glass and water cooled and all. And so it was the place to go, the place to be. And IBM took 2/3 of the graduating computer science majors that ended up working in Poughkeepsie. While I was there, I went to Union College because I was working on my MBA.
IBM?
I began working for IBM in 1979. I learned an important lesson in my first job. I was in operating systems, which is the real brains and guts of the computer. It tells things how to move, work around, and it's inside. And I found out that I didn't enjoy it much because I would work 70, 80 hours a week and it would go out to the world, and I never had any contact with it. So I decided to move into application development, internal applications, and boy, I really had joy there, where I got to work with the end users. I got to find out what their struggles were. From there, I was selected to be part of the Executive Resource Program, which is an early identification of potential executives within IBM. I've been at IBM for about 3 or 4 years, so usually within 5 years they try to identify potential executives. So from there, I became a manager within 5 years at IBM, which in many respects, it toughens you up. Great training and education at the corporate headquarters in Armonk. But as a first line manager, you have all the pressure from the upline management to want everything accomplished by the workers. Then the workers want promotions. It's never fast enough. They want more money. So it was really, a first line manager is a real tight squeeze. It's really tough. Real breakthrough project that I then went into in my 4th year and 5th year was a project called End User Response Time, or short was Your Time, EURTIME. Your time is important. So the computer people are saying, we get real fast, trivial, and moderate response times within the computer. And all the end users saying, hello, we're out here in other buildings and it's really terrible. So I came up with a very unique idea where I got a computer monitor out at the users' locations, and then we were able to actually see how it was working. And from there, I was able to look at measurements for the host computer, applications, development, and then the network that got to them. And so we were able to learn so many lessons about what changes that we were making in the computer were either positive or negative. So that really, again, got a lot of attention. But at this time, in my first couple of years, people think that I don't have a problem with speaking, even back then, but I was okay one-on-one with people. But for some reason, when I would stand up to give a talk, everything just seemed to fall out of my mind. And so I took a course in 1980 called Dale Carnegie for Human Relations and Effective Speaking. So I went from being uncomfortable, difficult, to really finding joy in presenting, because now I knew how to prepare for it and what might be effective. So I said, I want to go further, so I became a graduate assistant. So I would give the sample talks for the class. So I went to become a Dale Carnegie instructor at 25 years old in Hauppauge, Long Island. And it was one of the most challenging things in my life. But again, the instructor trainer there was very encouraging. And I became the youngest instructor in the history of the Dale Carnegie program at 25 years old. And it was a challenge each week because I had 40 to 44 students. They were bank executives or IBM, high-level people, and my job was to help them become more comfortable, them to become more successful in their businesses. So I worked really hard at that. At the same time, as I was working on my MBA. So from the new confidence I had with IBM in 1982, I ran for IBM Club. IBM Club, were about 14 IBM Club representatives for the 10,000 employees, and we would put together programming and sports activities. It was to enrich people's lives. And so I was elected by about 1,000 of the people to do that. And then 2 years later, because you couldn't be back to back, I became the president of the IBM club. So going from scared to speaking to confident, and then having these opportunities really helped the career tremendously. So while I was working at IBM full-time under pressure, I was a Dale Carnegie instructor. I was playing sports. I played softball. I was playing left field at the time. Later I pitched. And also I was very active in church. I was active in singing, in the Poughkeepsie singers there. And so I was really, and for a while working on my MBA. So it was, and then real estate. So a very busy time. But I met a real charismatic gentleman, sort of a Sidney Poitier, Eddie Murphy kind of, humorous but handsome. And so he was an African American, and so he and I together went into the, not in the core, but just outside. We bought up real estate in the 1980s when I was in. So Michael Hemingway, this gentleman, and I, in fact, it was called the Hemingway Scholet Investments, HIS, his company. And so we did that. We had properties in quite a bit in Newburgh, where he was from. And so he knew the area. And so we didn't go into corporate. We went into where we feel the most comfortable buying up properties. We got at a good price. And as the pressure of prices going up on the outskirts would come in, we doubled and tripled the prices on what we had purchased. I met my wife today, July 31st, 36 years ago, since 1982. And it was interesting because I never had a girlfriend before. I had female friends, we'd do a couple, but I never did. I was so busy all the time, I didn't have time for a relationship. If I had to dedicate to a relationship, I had to give up so many other things that I was enjoying. So I didn't do that. But when I met her, it was because a gentleman who worked next door to me, Jeff Haggerty, didn't know anybody. He says, I feel lonely, I'm a new hire. Says, oh, there's a party tonight. Dave Cousins from our building, 965 Poughkeepsie, he's having a party this week. I'll take you and introduce you to some people. Unbeknownst to me, Dave Cousins was also on a co-ed softball team, from which my now wife was the third basewoman on his team. So she came to the party around, and it was later that evening that I met Cindy, and really connected in a way that had never connected before. And then end of December we were engaged. So for not having a girlfriend, it went pretty quickly. We were ready to get married in the spring, but Cindy's brother was getting married, so we waited until Thanksgiving weekend of 1983 in Vassar College Chapel. And our reception was at West Point Officers Club, which was beautiful, 20-foot windows overlooking the Hudson River at the time. She was in corporate procurement, so when IBM didn't want to make parts, it would go out to Intel, Fairchild, etc. And so Cindy's job was to purchase those millions of parts, working with the engineering specs from IBM and what was needed, and then making sure those were accomplished through quality assurance and everything. At the same time I was doing all that, my wife and I started real estate part-time. People were coming into IBM from other locations. We'd hear about it. We'd be able to do that. I thought I'd get early awareness to some good property deals. So that was really busy time. 1980s, after commuting, Cindy and I, from Poughkeepsie, we decided that since our home is in Kingston, IBM had a big branch, a big plant there. And so we looked to transfer. And I was working so many hours, as I always do. I can't help myself. I said, I'll go somewhere, I'll start over, I'll just do a normal amount of work and get more balance in my life. Ha ha ha. So it worked for a few months. And then I went up to Kingston, and I ended up working for a director, Bob Callahan, in 1989. And he was just wonderful. And he let me take his whole email. I mean, everything that came in, I handled. I mean, it was a great ranking of employees in his whole organization, sensitive things. I learned so much about the business. And I was working a lot of hours, but not crazy hours. But then there was a chance for a promotion to a very rare level, senior programmer, very rare opportunity. But it was computer integrated manufacturing, SIM, and it was the heart of IBM's big customers. Manufacturing, automotive, aerospace, etc. And this product, CDF, Control Data Facility, was going to be the hub of a new architected solution that IBM was going to roll out. And it was in a lot of trouble, and the manager and the couple employees had their clear ideas, but the whole organization was not feeling they were being included. They felt they were over committing, and corporate wanted this to be the first rollout of this big architecture. So they wanted someone different, and I ended up taking the job, getting the big. So now in this time frame, something new happened to Cindy and I. We had 2 children. In 1989, April 7th, Nicole was born, and Cindy took a year off maternity leave. She went back to work for 1 year, and Nicole went to a daycare. Then we had our second child, Brandon, who was born May 22nd, 1991, and we felt that from the taxes that would be there and the cost of daycare and the disruption, that Cindy took a buyout from IBM. And so she stayed home with her children, which was really incredible, the opportunities that they had. And something new happened when I was on that executive resource opportunity with the ISD president. He said, "Can you talk to Nancy Stewart?" She was director of quality. It was really a holding position for a while for a major project that was about to kick off. But I went and talked to her, and she said, "You're the first person who told me it straight, what's good about it, what's bad about it, how we could make it better." She said, "I'm about to begin heading up in Detroit a $5.6 billion infrastructure strategic project." So in a couple of months, Nancy Stewart comes to me, the director, said, "What can I do? I like the way you work with EDS, and you're confident with them, and you represent IBM. What can I do to get you to stay for a year?" And I was kidding. I said, "Move me to Florida." She said, "Done." She takes me to one of her direct managers. I've committed to him and moving and living, M&L, to Florida. She said, "You don't mind commuting every week from Tampa to Detroit? It's a lot for us." I don't mind at all. So they had this vision about what the new world will be like. And Ray Strecker, who was a key person in the automotive industry, shared this new concept they called workflow management. And boom, big explosion in my brain. I could not believe what I was hearing, because that was the missing piece of why IBM was not strong in application development, why applications did not reflect the natural flow of a company philosophy. So I had this creative idea called Global Enterprise Management, GEM. It was a gem of an idea. I brought my big camcorder with me, and I took this software, new small company outside of Columbus, Ohio, KI Shell, Knowledge Integration Shell, and I showed how by using this thin layer, I could have the user do what they really would do in the real world. I would mask all the applications underneath. It didn't matter if it was digital, Texas Instruments, IBM mainframe, engineering, HP, it didn't matter. So this workflow would hide it. So they would enter their information. I'd find a way to get it to in the right form. And then if this application for another company needed it in a different form, we would take the image, transform it, and then move it forward in time. And so I had this idea. I videotaped the flow, and it shocked everybody. So then the word got out. Now this was the scary moment in my life. IBM was going to cut 100,000 employees. Massive cut when Lou Gerstner came in. So the rules were you could not change divisions. Well, we were a special project. We weren't a division. We were exposed. We were nothing, and I couldn't go back to the divisions I came from. So I was surplus. Right at that time, Nancy Green, who was the vice president of the aerospace industry, said, "This is an exception. This is going to change IBM." It did go to Lou Gerstner, head of 400,000 employees and 100,000 being cut, and I was spared. And so a handful of us were put into this innovation prep. So this was 1993 when I was surplus, when I demonstrated this new way of approaching technology business. So the whole thing turned from the applications being king to what the business wanted to achieve was being king, and their investments were protected as over time a roadmap was developed to get them to an efficient foundation. So this was glorious. I mean, they sent 2 people to follow me as I was going from engagement to engagement. They were writing down everything I'd say, and they were supposed to write documents so they could grow the practice, is what they call it, grow the consultants to do this business transformation. In 1994, I had been with the company for 15 years, and this was, you talk about the Maslow's self-actualization, where the greatest thing. This was the most joyful thing. I was doing something important. It was new. It was integrating a lot of complexity across the board. I was being respected for it. I was being recognized at the highest levels. Corporate cared about it. I was saved from surplus. So things were going really well. And Cindy was doing a great job with the kids, but I was continuing then to go to Brazil to talk about this. I went to Europe. I went to Japan, and so I was traveling various places, traveling throughout the United States. It was very high stress, and then I had built a team that could do this rapidly, and people wanted to start taking my technology team because they wanted to be successful in their engagement. So that was stressful and battling, and then the big model for consulting in IBM was that you got, as a consultant, you got your respect and your awards and bonuses and stuff based on billable hours. So no longer did it make sense to do all this in 1 week. I had to find a way to stretch it out. And so in this time, it was a heady time, it was an intense time, it was discovery time. Every company I went to was a new process, it was a new set of applications, a new set to accomplish. I had to build a team on the fly, ad hoc. It was intense, and people wanted to know more and more, and they wanted me to present at conferences. So it was very intense. But at this point in time, I had been gone Monday through Friday. I think only 2 or 3 times was I not home for my kids and my wife, which was quite a commitment, especially when I had engagements at Pacific Bell, Pac Bell, in California and overseas. So then I said, I really need to come home. And remember, I had moved down to Tampa, Florida area. Well, IBM had the IBM Global Network. And so there was an opportunity, and it worked out. It was tough to leave that. I mean, there was no greater moment from a career standpoint of what was happening there with this workflow. So I said, I really need to go home. It'd be work at IBM at home. So that was nice to be home, doing similar things that I liked. There were enough people there that were forward thinking and wanted to learn more. And I worked on a few projects there in 1996, 97. And then, because I'm a big picture kind of guy, the vice president said that corporate wants to do re-engineering of our whole IBM consulting. So they want someone from every logical domain. So the IBM Global Network had to put someone up into New York to be president. So they selected me as a big picture guy. So I went up there, and they picked 5 people from the world, but they're from the U.S. And the 5 of us were responsible for re-engineering all of global services. And so the 5 of us re-engineered, and we created a roadmap to save tens of millions of dollars in application costs. And at that time, I got promoted one more time to really, there's IBM fellows that are given a bunch of money, and then there's senior technical staff, and there's just a few dozen of those. So I was just below that level, and at that time I had invested in real estate that I mentioned, so I had done decently there. I had, when IBM was a laughing stock, I bought, and of course with the IBM employee purchase, I poured money into that. And the other thing was that the pharmaceuticals were bad-mouthed in the 92, 93 timeframe, and I'd been studying summary line about the history of stocks over 40 years, and I saw Merck, this pharmaceutical, and I focused on that because my wife's grandfather had actually worked for Merck. And I found it incredible. Merck, split, double, blah, blah. So when the pharmaceuticals were all knocked down, I bought Merck. So between IBM and Merck, 700, 800% growth in those two by the end of 1999. One of the things that the executives told me, and they were mostly men at the highest levels of the aerospace and automotive industry and IBM, was how much they loved their grandchildren. But they really regretted that they didn't get to know their children, because to get up to those levels, they were climbing the corporate ladder. They didn't have time to be at home and sports stuff like that. It was the biggest regret. So Rand, who wants to do things differently, at 42 years old in 1999, just after his major promotion, tied in, the future would have been really awesome and bright and financially very lucrative. And I was at that level. I was actually getting substantial stock options and bonuses based on the performance. So things were at the best it could be in every respect. But I said, I want to do something different. I want to be there for my children. So I retired early at 42 years old. So as I was working at corporate in Somers, New York, for the IBM Global Consulting domain, I was also, my stock portfolio kept growing and growing and growing substantially, such that I said, wow, I'm making more, and I'm making so much in a year, and it's capital gains, not regular income tax. I said I could sustain this for a while, and so that really was where I thought that financially I could sustain myself. So I retired early with a plan that I would spend time with my kids through the end of elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and then they got in their career, I go back to IBM or somewhere else and rebuild up all my savings. Because when you don't have income for 10, 11 years, when you have car insurance, house insurance, taxes, mortgage, cars, I mean gas, fuel, eating, and prepare for college, it eats up savings pretty quickly. I felt like an entrepreneur. I never felt so. And the creative ideas, IBM was good about embracing those and rewarding them and supporting them. And so I continued to do that throughout IBM before I left. And so I just felt that I wanted to also do community service. I wanted to do mentoring and tutoring. And so I did that. I was able to go and to sing. I was able to play softball. Just finished 40 years as a regular or a substitute soloist in church, and sang with the Florida Orchestra for 9 years, sang with Clearwater Chorus, and then a few years ago I was asked to help out. They wanted to expand their opera in the community to include opera choruses, and asked if I would help with my strong voice to do that. And I said I wouldn't. I did that for 6.5 years. I thought it was going to be for 6 months, but it was 6.5 years, and I just retired from that a few years ago because the Hamilton demanded. I left IBM at the end of 1999, and so that was 18 years ago. And so the plan was working great. Kids was with them for all their sports. I was with them for music, church. So we really enjoyed traveling, and I ended up calculating I've been to 57 states, my wife to 57 countries, Cindy to 55 countries, and Nicole, last I knew, was up to 44 countries. Brandon ended up going to the Air Force, so he lagged a little bit, but he probably 20, 25. So we all appreciated cultures. We also appreciated our nation. So we did appreciate other cultures, but we again saw this, how the opportunities are here, where if you have an idea and you want to do it, you just do it. Where a lot of the European, even though they are incredible, there's a lot of governmental decision about what you can do, how you can do it, where the money is distributed. You don't have that seed money, the entrepreneurial spirit, just not the same here. So that was something we found was special. The other thing, people make comments, they would know we were from the United States, is how do you know? And one of the best phrases I heard was, there's an inner go. People from the United States, there's an inner go, you're going. Where people, they get used to it, they accept it, and they don't plod along, but they're content at that level where we're always looking, right? What's next? More that energy, that inner go. I thought it was an interesting feedback that Europeans see about us.